I'm a forester here, and welcome to the first in a series of videos that I'm going to call My Next Gun. This is a phrase that you hear pretty often in conversations with other gun owners. We're always thinking about that next purchase, and if you're like me, you probably have your choices mapped out for your next 3 or 4 guns. My intent with this series of videos is to try to help others who are new to handguns like I was a few years ago make more informed purchasing decisions. We're fortunate to have so many choices, but sometimes choices can be confusing. If you're thinking of buying a home defense gun, for instance, here's one choice. A lot of people like 1911s in .45 caliber. They think these can do it all, real man stoppers. And after all, this is the 100th anniversary of 1911s. On the cover is an FN semi-auto and .40 Smith & Wesson. This has much higher capacity than that 1911 did. This gun is actually made near to where I live, and they offer a really neat factory tour. I'll feature an FN on one of My Next Gun videos. You could get a James Bond gun just for the neat factor. Here's a handgun in .380, and then they make others like the PPS. Some people like the Judge as a home defense gun, and that's in a whole category of revolvers. There's revolvers, fairly standard revolvers, and then specialty revolvers like anywhere from a small .22 up to a large caliber, say, hunting gun. So how do you decide, especially if you're new to handguns and money is a limiting factor? But for over 30 years, handguns didn't really cross my mind. I must not have seen the need for one, because if I did, I would have bought one. But think back, if you would, to the fall of 2008. Do you remember how you felt then? The U.S. economy was in danger of collapsing. The government was throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at the economy in hopes that something would work. For that matter, I'm not sure that we're out of the woods yet. There's an increasing amount of violence in our neighborhoods, some of it gang-related. Here's a clipping from a recent newspaper article, and it talks about gang members that gunned down a man while he worked on his car. And then over here it talks about the same gang, 6 members convicted in North Carolina for crimes ranging from murder to cocaine trafficking. So it's becoming more and more common, those type of violent crimes. I wanted a gun primarily for home defense, and then an occasional truck gun. I didn't intend to carry the gun, but now the purpose of your handgun may be different. It could be for recreational range shooting, concealed carry, competition shooting, hunting, collecting, or some other reason. But it's very important to think through your main purpose for buying a gun. I may have thought at first that there's one perfect all-round gun, but the more you get into guns, the more you realize that every gun has a unique feature or unique features that make it better suited for one or another purpose. First of all, who's going to use the gun? In my case, both my wife and I needed to be able to use it. Although I'm the primary user, I felt it was very important to get a gun that my wife could handle. This actually became the major factor in my decision on which gun to buy. Simpler designs, fewer moving parts, reliability, the caliber choice, and less recoil became more important to me. And I narrowed the decision down at this point to a revolver. This decision eliminated all these black plastic pistols that are out there. But there were still many factors that I had to consider. Caliber, the manufacturer, the model, and the barrel length were some of the choices. You know, it still included anything from a small .22 caliber Derringer to maybe a large caliber hunting handgun. Caliber became the next most important criteria in making a decision. I eliminated small calibers like a 22 and a 380 just because they didn't have the stopping power for home defense. I also eliminated large calibers because they had too much recoil and potential to go through multiple walls in a shooting. Ammunition cost was considered, as you can quickly spend more money on ammunition than the gun originally cost if you practice enough to become proficient with it. And finally, flexibility of ammunition loads is important, so you aren't locked into just one loading. For me, the answer was a revolver that shot the .357 Magnum cartridge. This is a very powerful cartridge, but you can downsize to a 38 plus P for less recoil, but still for home defense. And I don't have any because I've shot them up, but you can download even more, or downsize even more to a 38 special for inexpensive target shooting. So now I'm getting somewhere. I'm looking for a .357 Magnum revolver. A mix of factors become equally important now. Cost was a big factor and a real eye-opener. Guns were flying off the shelves at local gun stores and there weren't any specials to be found. I was surprised at how costly quality handguns were. Quality is a factor here also, as I found that cheaper guns felt cheaper to me. To me, there's a definite step up in quality from a Taurus to a Ruger and to a Smith & Wesson. I eliminated the lower end guns and concentrated on guns in the medium price range of $400 to $500. So how do you actually pull the trigger on the gun purchase? Making that final decision means visiting several gun stores and holding as many guns in your hand as possible. Better yet, it's advisable to shoot any gun that you're actually planning on purchasing. There's no better way to make sure that the gun will fit your needs. I ended up buying an all-American classic, the Smith & Wesson Model 66. This is a K-frame Smith & Wesson in .357 Magnum with a 4-inch barrel. I timed my purchase with a no-tax weekend for gun sales in my state. That made the purchase a little less expensive. Now this is a retired service pistol. It was originally manufactured in the late 1990s and it's seen the better part of a decade in service. If money had been no object, I would have bought a brand new Smith & Wesson because of the high level of quality that was obvious in their guns. But by buying it used, I felt like I got the Smith & Wesson quality at about half the price of a Smith & Wesson handgun. Now you have to be careful if you're buying a used gun. My advice is to buy from a reputable dealer. Inspect the gun to see if it still locks up tight. This gun is loaded with snap caps, so we're safe here. But it locked up pretty tight. There's just a little bit of play, but no more than any other revolver that I looked at. In particular, you want to inspect the forcing cone to see if there's any visible damage, especially down at the bottom of the forcing cone. A steady diet of .357 Magnums can cause cracks in that forcing cone of these K-frame revolvers. This one looked fine. Then finally, test fire the gun. Let's look at this gun in a little more detail. The model number is stamped on the frame right in this area, and this is a Model 66-5. There were 6 versions of the Model 66, and this is the 5th version. The Model 66 was discontinued somewhere around 2002 to 2003, I'm not sure the exact year, in favor of the L-frame models, which were built a little bit more stout. Smith & Wessons are quality guns, but what does that really mean, the term quality? Well, for a used gun like this one, I didn't want to confuse normal wear with quality. I plan to use these original grips, just leave them on it, but the grips do show a good bit of wear. Also, there's absolutely no sharp edges on this gun at all, but I can't tell if that's a result of normal condition or the use that it's seen. The action is very smooth, both in double action and single action. Now remember, it's loaded with snap caps, so let me demonstrate the trigger pull. I like how you can feel and hear the cylinder lock up in double action right before the hammer drops. It's a great way to tell when to stage the trigger. I'll get a little bit closer and see if you can hear the cylinder lock up. Right there. And then pull the trigger just a little bit more and the hammer drops. I'll do that one more time. Right there. So you know where to pause and stage the trigger and then fire. In single action, let me pull my finger back on the trigger. See if you can see any movement at all in that trigger to cause the hammer to drop. I'll do that one more time. Basically, if you think about it, that hammer is going to drop. The fine checkering here is another sign of quality, and one thing I like to look for is how freely that cylinder spins. To me, that's another sign of quality. Well, have I used this gun as planned? And the answer is definitely. It's stayed in my bedside table ever since buying it. I either keep .357 Magnums or 38 plus P ammo in it. We practice with it regularly. Let me show you some targets. I practice at either 5 or 7 yards. Here's a 5-yard target. And I take two measurements. I measure the distance from the center of the target to the farthest bullet, and then also the distance between the two farthest bullets. And here I was shooting at 5 yards and had a 1.2 radius. Here's another 5-yard target with a 1.1 yard radius. I had one stray. Okay, here's at 7 yards with a 1-inch radius. And here's my last target, and that was at 7 yards, 1.2-inch radius. I've never bought a holster for this gun because I don't carry it due to its size and weight, but I do transport it in a gun case when I go to the range for practice. Would I have bought anything different in retrospect? Well, possibly. In shooting different handguns, I found that I shoot a snub-nose .357 just as well as this gun with a 4-inch barrel. A .357 snub-nose revolver would have served several purposes: home defense, truck gun, and concealed carry. At the time I made this purchase, though, I really wasn't considering concealed carry at all. Also, happening upon this affordable used Smith & Wesson made my decision for me. This is the only Smith & Wesson I own, and I'm glad I found it. Smith & Wesson is truly a high-quality, all-American gun. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is how I waded through all the handguns in making my first purchase. This is the first in a series of 7 videos that I plan to make on my next gun. Please subscribe if this theme is of interest to you. I'll address my choices in concealed carry, truck guns, training guns, and go-to-war guns in upcoming videos. What's your next gun? I welcome you to post comments or video responses below. Take care and enjoy my rendition of the All-American Gun Medley.